Hello and welcome to Restoring Our American Republic. I'm Chuck Gunnar with The Nature of Things, where we are realigning God, government, and natural law so that we might restore our American Republic. From Venezuela to Cuba to Greenland to Iran, our president, Donald J. Trump, is busy. Some say he's playing three-dimensional chess. Others suggest he might be getting a bit over his skis. But whatever you think, hopefully you're praying for our president regularly and intensely. So as we look into issues a little more closely to home, we pray for the work that our president is doing to rearrange global politics, bring peace and freedom to some of the most oppressed nations of the world. And we say that in with an amen. With that, good morning, Mr. Levine.
Good morning, Chuck. Yes, our president is super busy, unbelievably busy, right?
Yeah. That's every time you turn around, there's something else going on. We're talking to Cuba, now we're talking to Iran. We got these deals going on in the back. I don't know if they're backroom deals or what, but yeah, I guess they are. Um,
Politics cannot exist without backroom deals, long story short. You can't do everything in the front of a camera. Some things, and again, you wouldn't want to, right? I mean, you're a business guy. You're traveling around the world. Do you really need a camera on you 24/7? I mean, it just isn't practical, right, from a practical matter. But that's not the point. We're not here to talk about that. That's ridiculous, you know. So anyway, if you don't like the Secretary of State sitting in a boardroom with a state leader from another country and having a conversation off camera, then you're pretty much going to neuter the Secretary of State, Chuck. And
yeah, I
the
guess.
same with the president, right? You got to be able to just do business. That's just the way it is. You got to get all the obstructions out of the way so you can get this done. I just want to make this one point about that, though, Chuck. This is the United States of America. We are um, the most influential country in the world, and this is what a presidency should look like. There's never a time in the world when there's not much going on. No matter where administration you're in. Donald Trump isn't causing all of this activity. He is responding to it. He's doing his job for the first time. We've just never really seen. That's my underlying comment, Chuck. We've never really seen a president actually do his job and put all of his department heads and his cabinet and all of the agencies. How many government employees are there? Yes, we can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time, Chuck.
There you go. There you go. Well, a little closer to home, we've been talking about some legislation here in the Florida, um, uh, over in Tallahassee there, and we looked at Bernie Jacques' HB 985 last time, basically requiring proof of citizenship for registering to vote. It was a very short bill, very to the point, very acceptable. We're all for it. Today, there's another similar type of a bill talking about elections from Representative Jenna Persons Mullica. A little more, little more to it. A lot of requirements for a lot of different organizations. Uh, the end result, I don't know how much we're happy about it, but let's get into it. We can start with the initial statement that is made is the requiring persons to swear or affirm they have reviewed the voter registration instructions, are a United States citizen, and understand the penalties for providing false information. That's the first little comment on that. And then it goes on giving requirements for the voter registration application, as well as the applicant and the system, the voter registration system. It gets into the supervisor election requirements. The Department of State has some requirements. Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. I mean, it gets down into it. Um, so probably maybe the first thing we want to talk about is how they define a ballot.
Okay. Um, my comment is this for the opener.
Okay.
When legislation gets this complicated, it's bad. All you have to do is compare and contrast this bill to Bernie Jacques' bill. Bernie Jacques has a simple bill. And of course, I would suggest that this bill does go farther than what Bernie Jacques' 985 goes. So you could argue that point. But the fact is, Chuck, as you look at every single one of these changes and you look at the impact of each one of these things, there are pros and cons associated with each one. So basically, to address some of the things that you just went through, I mean, number one number one good thing about what this bill calls for is this is a major point of contention for many of the grassroots organizations around the state as I speak with them about this, and they are all opposed to this bill, by the way. Um, I won't speak for them. I'll let their leadership teams come out and make their own announcements. But I've talked to several grassroots organizations around the state who are adamantly and fearful of this bill. So that's point number one. But when you read the bill, someone's going to say, well, it says it causes the voter registrant to or the supervisor to verify citizenship. But what you just said was on the application, it doesn't say that it doesn't call for them to verify, it calls for them to swear. But the fact is, Chuck, that later on in the bill, it does call for the verification in many other places in the bill. This bill does call for the voter to have to verify citizenship and actually gives a list of the documents that are required in order to verify citizenship before the voter can vote, Chuck. So, a lot of people are saying, oh, this bill says swear and affirm instead of verify. And that's true, it does. And that I would suggest all by itself is a weakness. But other places in the bill, Chuck, the bill does require the voter to verify using a very specific set of documents, which I think are pretty good. I didn't see anything foolish in there. It actually, I think that's Bernie's bill that removes the homeowners association ID and the
Yeah.
student ID and all that kind of stuff. And this goes back into um, it goes back into your passport, your birth certificate, those kind of things. But one thing it does do that concerned me on the list of documents that are acceptable for citizenship verification, it says any document that the federal government issues that says you're a citizen means you're a citizen. So that means if Democrats got a hold of the Senate, of the House, or the presidency, they could just issue a document stating someone's a citizen and bam, they're a citizen. It just circumvents the entire system. And also, it has a provision that says the state of Florida can do the same thing. So now the question becomes constitutionally, can the state of Florida determine who's a citizen and who's not? But this bill does say that if a voter presents a notice from the federal government that says they're a citizen, or the voter presents a document from the state of Florida that says they're a citizen, then under this law, they are treated as a citizen, which means they're going to get their voter reg, which means they effectively become citizens, Chuck. They're going to have all the rights of citizenship without going through the process, according to this bill, Chuck.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's also a lot of, I guess it kind of shifts the responsibility all over the place. So that possibly, for years you're trying to figure out, well, who's responsible for the inaccuracy. Um, I may be overstating that, but it just seems to me like every time you turn around, he's talking about the responsibilities of another Department of State. Some other department has responsibilities, whether it's Department of State, Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, the Supervisor of Election, and it just bounces the Division of Elections, county canvassing boards. I mean, all these different organizations have some new responsibility, and I guess, in my estimation, another place to bog down the system.
Yeah, I get that. I would say, let's just walk through it. Okay. Elections in Florida are run by the Secretary of State. So the Secretary of State should have responsibilities on the implementation of the processes by which we run state elections. So that's point number one. Point number two, The supervisor, okay, I'm going to get to the bottom of this for you real quick, but let me just walk you through this. The supervisor of elections in the counties, obviously, they're administering the elections themselves, right? So, what is the problem here, Chuck? What organization in this list of organizations who has responsibility under this bill? Where's the root of the problem, Chuck? And I think you and I are going to break some news here today, okay? Because you know what the problem is? The problem is we're registering voters at the DMV instead of at the supervisor of elections office. Chuck, when you take the Department of Motor Vehicles out of the election equation, you solve all of your problems and all of your concerns. If you want to register to vote, you register with the supervisor of elections, period.
Well, that may be just a little too simple. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. That might be a little too simple for our, our government.
You know what, Chuck? Let me just tell you something. This is the root of why we, the citizens of this state, are running on the hamster wheel constantly, and it's because we don't implement the very simple, obvious things. And the idea that you register to vote at the Department of Motor Vehicles is an absurdity. Long story short, and I got news for you: the law today. And again, keep in mind who follows the law. The only time anybody follows the law is when it's to their advantage to do so. I mean, again, you can just go into the litigiousness of the state of Florida. We are the highest litigating state in the country, right? So basically, we just put a bunch of stuff up against the wall. And every now and then, when someone pisses us off, we leverage the law against them. We use the law to weaponize them against people who disagree with us or them against us for disagreeing, which is most common in the on the battlefield, let's just say. But simplification is required. So my vote would be get the Department of Motor Vehicle, and we need to talk about this because this is the first time I've not the first time I've ever had this thought, but the first time I've articulated it. And I'm saying to you that if you want to clean up voters, you got to get you got to get the DMV out of it because this is and this is major important point, Chuck. This is a massive data collection operation, and that's what a lot of the people on our side of the football don't like about it. On the other hand, we do want all the information, the application filled out completely. We want to know what your name is. We want to know where you live, right? We want to know that you're a citizen. We want, and there's various different things in the law. If you're a felon, or if you're adjudicated incompetent, or other disqualifying conditions, then you can argue, point by point, which of those conditions should prevent someone from voting. But the long story short, as you're pointing out, Chuck, that simplification is the key. That's why if I had to choose between passing uh, Persons Mullica's bill or Bernie Jacques' bill, I'll go with Bernie's bill because it's simple, easy to understand. This bill, just like they always do, Chuck, on the liberal side, which I'm saying there's a bunch of liberal Republicans in the legislature. On the liberal side, they always make these things really, really complicated, which is what you're seeing right now. And I'll turn the microphone back over to you with that.
Yeah, sure. So along with requiring a person to swear or affirm, another thing it requires is for the voter registration application to elicit documentation required by the United States Election Assistance. So it's giving a responsibility to the application itself to elicit. Uh,
To the
so
DMV, Chuck.
yeah,
So think about that. The lines, again, in Lake County, we just hire 1 million people, so there's never a line, right? We've got employees sitting around waiting
yeah.
for a customer of the county to get the business done. So that's just the way we roll in Lake County. We just overstaff everything, so there's never a freaking line. So in Lake County, we might be fine collecting passports and birth certificates. And keep in mind, these things are going to have to be scanned into the record. They're going to be transferred to the Secretary of State. When the Secretary of State has to communicate with the supervisor of elections in your county, they're going to deliver the documents utilized by the applicant to register. If there's ever a conflict, according to this bill, if there's a conflict, then the Secretary of State's going to provide the source documents on which the applicant applied to the SOE, who's going to have to then make a determination and then contact the voter, etc. But Chuck, one thing I really don't want to end this video without talking about the machines, Chuck. because this stuff definitely makes it a lot more complicated. But the machines are really the root. I'm going to say two things, Chuck. The Department of Motor Vehicles should not register voters, and we should not vote using machines. Those are the two things. This bill makes it clear that the DMV severely complicates the issue. And we know with the involvement of the various different software companies and hardware companies that are involved in voter tabulations, I'll use as a overall overarching term, that they have an interest in the game, and yeah, and the and they have a lot of influence over our legislators too. So there's no way in the world that House Bill 991 is not that these voter software companies and hardware manufacturers are not involved in the advancement of this bill, Chuck.
Yeah. Well, that would have been a nice crescendo, but we still got a good 12, 15 minutes left here. But
I'm good, but you know how this goes, Chuck. We run out of time pretty quick, and I just want to make sure that we do not miss that point, right?
okay.
That this bill actually calls for machines to verify the other machines. That's crazy. And our
Yes, it
supervisor of
does.
elections in Lake County is already asking for a bigger building, which is millions of dollars of taxpayer money, because he's telling us he doesn't have enough room to store the machines he's got. And now the state of Florida is going to require him to buy another set of machines, which is going to make him want a building even bigger, Chuck.
Even
So
bigger.
these
Yeah.
guys have absolutely no respect for taxpayer dollars, Chuck.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's hard to say, well, we don't want all this documentation because, quite frankly, we do. But I just, I think what you're kind of saying is we can get it done not by adding all these different departments' responsibilities, but to simply take the responsibility away from the DMV, return it to the supervisor of elections, and be done with it.
Let me say something, Chuck. I was on a couple of calls over the weekend with some other grassroots organizations, and they're talking about how their organization is structured. Okay, and they want, so a lot of people in Florida believe that some of all that these grassroots organizations are top-down organizations, just like the state government is. And my response to them was that when the information is generated locally and fed up the food chain, then you have control at the local level. But when the information is generated at the top and then dispersed down, then you have top down autocratic type of government because we rely on them in order for us to do our job locally. And that's the same thing here. So as I go back to you, back to my original point on the DMV, if you take the DMV out of the voter registration business, and you put the supervisors of elections, which should be doing the voter registrations, back into
Oh,
the voter registration business, you solve the problem, Chuck. Period.
yeah.
And it solves problems that we haven't talked about as well. For example, all 67 supervisors of elections in the state of Florida do not agree with the BS that's going on around elections in this state yet. The machine is so powerful that they won't let their voice be heard, and they do the best they can with the circumstances that they operate under. When you go back to all voter registrations are done by supervisors of elections in the state of Florida, then you cut through a lot of the inappropriate activity that's going on in the state of Florida, because all these supervisors, when they are in charge of their department and not subjugated to the state or to the DMV, they're going to do a better job, Chuck. That's what I'm saying. So we want information generated locally and fed up the food chain, not information generated at a state organization and disseminated down. And so that goes back to my point that I've already made a couple of times, so I won't make it again. But the DMV should, I guess I will. The DMV should not be in voter registration, and the supervisor of elections should be in charge of all voter activity in their counties. That would solve it all, Chuck.
Yeah, so again, going down a few more paragraphs here. This bill is going to require the county canvassing board or other local board responsible for certifying an election to conduct an automated independent vote validation of the voting systems used in all precincts, providing the process for conducting such automated independent vote validation and requiring the canvassing board to publish a specified notice on the county's website, the supervisor's website, or in certain newspapers requiring that the vote validation be completed and made public before the certification of the election. So, can you maybe
What did I just
explain?
say, Chuck? Yeah, that is machines validating machines. That is the short story on that gobbledygook that you just read. Okay, that they don't want to say it in the language because if they put it in the language, then people are going to object to it. They're going to say, we're going to get like that's what Blaise and Golia did last year, right? He said, we're going to get more machines to verify the original machines. And now this girl, she learned from Blaise. She's probably talking to Blaise about it, right? She's probably saying, hey, CFO and Golia, when you ran this bill last year, what kind of problems did you have with it? And he explained it to her. So now she says, oh, well, I can't use the word machine. So we're going to take the long, gook explanation and we're going to say in long form that we're going to have machines verifying the accuracy of the machines. That's what you're talking about right there.
Yeah,
So thank you for bringing it up, Chuck. I really
well,
appreciate it because that is a
you're
big deal.
you're totally welcome. And pretty much, I think I've kind of touched base on every department that's got something to do with the
Oh, yeah.
with all this, and just ends with requiring counties again to conduct automated independent vote validation processes, etc. Not just the canvassing
And they're
boards,
giving
but
you
the
the red
counties.
meat, right, Chuck?
Yeah.
They also throw us a little bit of red meat, right? They say we're not just going to vote, we're not going to verify just randomly selected precincts. We're going to recount the whole damn thing because we can, because we've got machines that can count these things fast. So by the time the canvassing board certifies the elections, we will not only have had an election, but we will have recounted the election. So there should be no pushback from anyone about the results of the election because our machine verified their machine, right?
There you go. There you go.
That's where we're
Well,
at, Chuck.
well, the last
Where we're at.
thing
Oh, and
that I
by the way,
have,
I have to get it in, Chuck. Based on your point that there's a lot of different organizations involved, a lot of opportunity for finger pointing. Oh, we didn't do it. No, they did it. No, we didn't do it. They did it. No, that's not our responsibility. Let's all get a team of lawyers to figure out who should have gotten the passport or the birth certificate. Okay? Because I don't think that was my responsibility. That's their responsibility. And if you read that long sentence that person's Mullica wrote in her bill, because she is a lawyer, by the way, you know what I mean? So this is great for lawyers, and that's an aside. I don't really care too much about that, to be honest with you, but it is true, right? That this allows for a lot of finger pointing, Chuck.
yeah, well, I
Long
think
story
that was
short.
the thing that I came away with. But again, the last thing that I have, the last subject or whatever, is a good one. It says it's prohibiting political parties, political committees, committees associated with ballot issues or questions, electioneering communications organizations, and candidates from knowingly accepting contributions from foreign nationals. Now, is that not in the law already somewhere, or is this new to Florida?
Chuck, I believe it is in the law already. But I'm telling you right now that when you take a look at the landscape of campaign finance and how this money is raised, there's no way in the world people are keeping a check on that. And in Florida, we've got so many foreign nationals living in Florida that are not eligible to vote. And it's really on the candidate, to vet that out. And, some candidates do a better job than others, and some will roll the dice. I mean, obviously, I'm amazed at some of the stupid stuff that people do knowing it's wrong and just thinking they won't get busted. But I don't know. But so I totally agree. I mean, for me personally, if I were writing the law, I would say that a candidate is not allowed to take money from anyone who's not eligible to vote in the election that they're running in. That's how I think it should be done. No special interest, no PACs, none of that. It should just be if you're a registered voter in the district, then you're eligible to donate to a candidate. Other than that, none. That's the way I would like to see it done. So the idea of having to parse out whether somebody is a foreign national or not, honestly, you should just say that you're not allowed to take money from somebody who's not registered to vote, right? That'd do it. You've got to
Yeah,
be
so
registered to vote to be a donor.
there you go. So
That'd take corporations out of it too, Chuck, and level the playing field on special interests as well.
yeah, that would be nice. I don't think the Supreme Court would let us do that,
I
but
don't
it
know.
would
I
be
don't know where you get
nice,
the idea that a corporation is a person. I really still don't understand that. How can a corporation that doesn't breathe and bleed be have voting rights? No, that to me that's just wrong.
right?
Just saying. I
Um,
guess that's the reason why I'm not in government, Chuck, because a lot of people disagree with what I just said.
Yeah, well, I think we've kind of given our opinion on this particular piece of legislation. I thought I'd just jump back over to HB 985, Bernie Jacques' bill, and just read the first maybe sentence of. It says voter registration and identification. It requires the supervisor of elections to verify applicant citizenship status and refer certain matters to the Office of Election Crimes and Securities. So, in other words, if this supervisor of elections sees someone trying to vote who's not a citizen, the Election Crimes and Securities office needs to be notified. I didn't see that in any of the this bill that we just looked over. Um,
Well, keep in mind, Chuck, we're reading the originally filed bill, and this does have committee assignments now. So as this thing goes through committee, it's going to change. And of course, Bernie's bill is going to be in the mix as well. So the same committees that are going to look at this bill, 991, are going to also be looking at 985. And there'll be a lot of meshing, and could be that it could be on a really it could be that the committee itself replaces both of these bills with a committee sponsored bill, and that's a real possibility. So I would just pray that there's some good work that can be done there. Um, but keep in mind, if these bills don't get voted favorably through committee, then they're not going to the floor. So everything we're doing is for nothing. But which is fine. You know, better to be safe than sorry. But you're right. Again, the supervisor of election should be responsible for verifying. But at the end of the day, under this bill 991, the supervisor of elections is the last person to know, right? Typically, the information is gathered at the DMV, given to the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State provides it to the SOE on an as needed basis when the Secretary of State believes that there's a problem, because the Secretary of State does not want to notify the voter. The Secretary of State wants the SOE to notify the voter. And if you're not going to do that, if the SOE is not going to notify the voter, then why do we have SOEs? Right? I mean, it's
there you
crazy,
go.
right? So I hope that makes sense. you know,
Yeah,
it made sense in my mind as I articulated it, but hopefully everybody can understand what I just said.
yeah, you regularly articulate yourself very well. We are at the end of our time, so I don't know if you would like to just
No
give
way.
us a final overview of your opinion on this particular bill, HB, where is it, 991.
Yeah. The overview is all of our legislators should vote no on 991. That is the down and dirty. That's the most important thing that comes out of this video is that we have to encourage our legislators to vote no on HB 991. Thanks, Chuck.
Super. Thank you, Mike, and thank you all again for tuning in to our twice weekly live stream. Please follow us on Facebook at Restoring Our American Republic or check us out on YouTube at Restoring Our American Republic ROAR. Please like and share the program. And remember, if you are unwilling to govern yourself, you will be governed by tyrants. So until next time, God bless you. God bless President Donald J. Trump, and God bless America.